The tourism board in Gambia has a stark warning for British tourists. The West African country says British women should stop coming to the country looking for flings with younger men. That's a euphemism. The director of the tourism board there has suggested he wants to send what he calls promiscuous pensioners packing, as the country wants to attract what were described as quality tourists who come to enjoy the culture instead of sex. Well, sex tourism took hold there after the launch of budget package tours in the 1990s, with reports of young Gambian beach boys often seen assisting older female tourists, some old enough to be their grandmothers. Journalist, writer and commentator Caroline Farrow joins me now. Hi to you, Caroline. It's very rare that I read an introduction to a story which feels like no other story I've ever introduced before on the telly. This is one of those stories. And on one level, that's good, because you want to be made to think about the news in new ways. A first reaction to this is that, of course, men have been travelling abroad for tourism for decades, if not longer. What do we make of this? What do we make of what the Gambians are saying about this?
Well, in many ways, I feel a little bit uncomfortable because, it's up to Gambia what laws they want to set. And obviously, they want to clean up their tourist industry. I think I read somewhere that sex tourism accounts for 20% of their GDP. And it's very easy for us to kind of titter and giggle at the idea of older women going to have affairs with younger Gambian men. You know, it's not seen as quite so taboo or exploitative, but it is, because if you're having to basically induce somebody to have sex with you because they wouldn't do so otherwise, it is a form of exploitation. And older women having sex with younger men is only one side, is only one element to sex industry or sex tourist industry. So we also are seeing reports in Gambia of younger and younger children, including girls as young as 8, becoming recruited into this trade. And when you have a sex trade, it doesn't help the country to lift itself out of poverty. It just sort of increases, the poverty trap. And it says something to a society if the only way that people can better themselves is by selling themselves for sex. So I think Gambia has an awful lot to offer. It's got chimpanzee reserves. It's got wildlife, apparently incredible species of birds. Although I'm widely travelled, it's not a country I've been to. And I think good for them, actually. I mean, Africa is a socially conservative continent. So, it is... In an age where we're also sensitive about colonialism, then we shouldn't be going over there and attempting to impose our liberal, progressive sexual values onto what is a very socially conservative country.
I feel like I'm tiptoeing through a moral minefield here, Caroline. Do let me know if anything goes bang. How does it differ? I'm sorry, I'm trying to think it through. How does what you've described differ, say, for instance, from groups, very large groups, of young male and female Brits going to a part of the world which is socially conservative and being promiscuous? I mean, they are taking with them a set of moral code which is, doesn't sit comfortably with that of the country which they're visiting. How does that differ from what's happening in the Gambia?
Well, of course, when groups of young men and women, sexually promiscuous young men and young women, go to these conservative countries, they often do find themselves a cropper. We're always reading about stories, particularly in the Middle East. And it's a reminder to everybody that when you visit another country, it's a privilege, and you ought to respect the traditions and culture of the country that you're visiting. But the difference is here, basically, women and men, anybody going abroad to try and coerce somebody into having sex, to try and pay them for sex, that's exploitative and shouldn't happen. I think it's a different kind of morality. And, the same applies in an age of female equality. Let's hold women and men accountable to the same standards. So just as it's not okay for men to go over to Thailand, I know that's a very common country, to procure younger children for sex, just as it's not okay for men to go to wherever to procure young women for sex and to pay them, the same standard applies to women.